This time around, Renee Pigdon joins me in the studio for the journey, the lady behind Pet Focus and lots of other things. Thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Thanks for inviting me along, Kev.
Now, as we do every time, start with the background of you being here in Albury-Wodonga. Are you a local girl, or what lured you to the region?
Well, my parents married in Melbourne, and I was actually born in Melbourne, and they brought me up here on holiday when I was about 2 years old and drove through Yackandandah and fell in love with the area and decided that that's where they wanted to set up and raise us kids. And so I'm actually originally a Yackandandah girl, so I'm pretty much almost born and bred locally, but raised here for my whole childhood. So I'm very at home, Kev.
Your study, I'd imagine your primary and secondary school was done here, but then did you have to leave for your vet degree?
Once I was accepted into veterinary school, I tripped off for Melbourne for 5 years, and that was frightful for a young country schoolgirl. It was fantastic to be able to experience that and to know what city life was all about. So that was a really enjoyable part of my life too. Coming back to Albury-Wodonga was something that it's always been in my blood. Yeah, I just love it here.
Got everything you need, don't you?
We've got everything we need right here.
How do you think other people would describe you?
Oh, Kev, this is a frightful question, isn't it? I'm a lady with very little time, so I suppose at times I could come off as a little abrasive. Very high achiever, so I'm always working towards something. But at the same time, I can certainly have fun and let down my hair. It just doesn't happen as often as I would like. Look, I'm quite competitive. So I've got that competitive streak, and if I'm playing sport or doing something or working towards a goal, I will work really, really hard in order to achieve the best that I can. So I would say people would feel that, yeah, that's me, very competitive, but also kind, charitable and friendly and caring. What I do with my position as a vet, I think you have to be a very caring and nurturing person to be in that role in the first place. So the real me is very much a high caring person. But I would say as a whole, it would be difficult for people to see through my busyness to find, unless they know me really well, to see what I'm really like.
So you talk about being busy.
Yeah.
When you aren't working, which I'd imagine is sometimes any time of the 24/7 cycle, where do we find you? What do we find you doing? What are your hobbies?
Apart from cleaning up after 4 young children and 3 older children, I love to run. I've always been a runner, and I used to, when I had more time, I was a triathlete. Couldn't swim to save myself, but I tried really hard. But I love to run, and we have a lovely property out by Lake Hume and with a lovely big hill, and I love to run up that hill and check the cattle when it's not snake season, because they're frightful creatures. I like to stay fit when I can find the time. And we love water sports too. So my husband, we met through water skiing. So he has a real passion for that. And I do also, just not as big a passion. So we love to take the kids along in the boat on Lake Hume and do that too.
That's one of the wonders of Albury-Wodonga, isn't it? Everybody absorbs Lake Hume in some way, shape or form. Exactly. You mentioned, I just thought I'd bring it up, we've actually got something in common. You wouldn't believe it, but I used to like triathlons as well, but also hated the swimming league. Can't swim to save myself.
Really, Kev? I would have picked you for a swimmer.
No, so mixed team, I always found, is you'd get somebody else to do the swim and you might do the run and or the ride yourself. So there's a tip if you want to get back into triathlons.
Thank you.
Who do you admire the most, whether they're past or present? And why?
Naturally, a family person tends to admire one's children, and my husband would kill me if I didn't mention him, because of course I admire him. We're still married. But I would have to say my mum. My mum's been gone for 10 years now, but she was a very inspiring lady, also very, very kind and a wonderful mum. She always gently encouraged, never pushed us kids to do the best that we could. And there was three of us kids, and we all went on to achieve reasonable things with our careers. But she was always there in the background, gently encouraging. And I find that a struggle these days for myself, the juggle between being a great mum and being that business person that I am, finding that balance. And I found that she had that balance down pat. and I aspire to have that balance, and I feel like I don't most of the time. So I would say I admire her more than I do anyone else, Kev.
What's that balance look like? And how do you achieve that? There's only so many hours in a day, isn't there?
There is, and I think for all of us parents out there, there's always that element of guilt that we're not doing enough, we're not spending enough time, we're not saying the right things, and we're not disciplining the right way. So I don't know that any parent ever feels like they're doing a perfect job. I think as a business owner, and a lot of our fellow business owners out there would relate to this, I think that element of guilt is even higher because we've got this monster being the business that we're trying to perfect and nurture, but then there's the family that is also of huge importance. It's the number one importance, and there's that little struggle there all the time with giving each enough time, and that can be exhausting. So finding that balance for me is something that I'll continue to try and achieve the best I can. I know it will never be perfected, but it's my goal to try and get that balance the best that I can get it.
Do you think surrounding yourself with the right people, both in terms of employees, staff, colleagues and friends and family, helps in any way?
I do, and I feel that within the universe we attract, to an extent, what we put out. I feel that I love what I do so much, and I'm so committed to it and delivering Albury-Wodonga the best possible pet healthcare out there, that I've attracted those souls. And right now, I feel that in the business we have the best team that we could possibly have. And it hasn't happened overnight. It's taken a long time. The team all know each other really well, and they all know me really well. I've worked with a couple of my staff for over 20 years, and they're still with me. So that creates a culture, a family culture within the workplace too. So it actually feels like when we're at work, and I know this is true for a lot of the team, is they feel like they're at home too. And in doing that, they're happy. So it's a happy environment there. At home, with our friends and family, the same thing goes. So we're, as much as I'm not there, and we try and build on quality rather than quantity so much. So we have a great time when we're all together. So, and the people in my life are, they're my little diamonds. But I wouldn't be sane without them. Not that I feel I'm completely sane, Kev.
It's the late nights.
That's it.
Do you get into quotes? Do you read a bit? Any good inspiring quotes or filters that you put on your life?
I love reading scientific journals, so they're not really big on quotes and things like
facts.
that. But it's all facts when you have a science brain. So I don't spend a lot of time reading. I look forward to flights when I go on travel, which is not that often, but when I do, I like to pull out a good book. But I've always lived by the old saying, short-term pain, long-term gain. It always rings in my head every week. More so when I was a student and I was working towards the goal of wanting to be a vet and then wanting to be the best vet that I could be. Put in that time, put in that work, put in that study, and at the end, you're going to be happy doing what you want to do for the rest of your life. I once heard a wonderful local businessman speak before I got into business here on the border, and I heard him say, "Watch the cents and the dollars will take care of themselves." And I always think of that. I'm not one for remembering quotes. Yeah, I've got a great team of professionals around me that help me in business as well. And that advice, though, with that quote is, it's important to me, and it's the way I run my business. It's, just save your pennies for tomorrow.
You're probably going to have a couple of angles to approach this question with the maternal side and the professional side, but what do you think's the biggest achievement in life for you so far?
Well, every parent would say birthing my children. And look, I would say that it's a wonderful thing to have a child and to raise a family. So naturally, that would be the best thing that's happened to me. And of course, meeting my husband to allow that to happen naturally. But so far as career is concerned, recently, surprisingly, having that recognition of achievement in business for me signifies that people have noticed and appreciated that we are committed to what we do and, we want to be the best that we can be. I think that's up there, Kev. I like to say that every day is a great achievement because I feel I live every day like it's my last day. And but I would say in business, having that recognition recently of being a good business person, that was a great achievement for me.
Well, you were a finalist in multiple categories in the Albury Wodonga Business Awards. How many did you clean up?
How many did we clean up?
Win? Yeah.
So we took out the Excellence in Innovation Award for our new animal hospital. Yeah. So with the segregation component of the hospital, so having the separate cat hospital from the dog and exotics pet hospital. And we completed that project in October 2018. So it was timely recognition, brand new hospital. That's achieved many angles of recognition from vets all over the country and also internationally with the gold accreditation with the International Society of Feline Medicine. The hospital has ticked all the boxes to enable that. So we took that award out, and surprisingly, personally, I took out Outstanding Business Person Award, which I was very humbled by, very surprised, because I was up against, some amazing and very committed business people in Albury Wodonga. So it was a lovely feeling to achieve that.
Sounds like they're both on display with much pride.
Definitely, Kev. Yeah.
We've all heard of sliding door moments in life. You come to a fork in the road, things sort of come back around again, choices, decisions. Have you had a few of those?
I haven't. One of the things that I don't do often is look back and wonder why. I feel I'm too busy moving forward. And I think there's a genetic component there because that was big in my family, always look forward. Don't worry about the mistakes made in the past. Just learn from them and move on. So I would say no, Kev. I'd like to say potentially maybe if I hadn't met my husband water skiing, things would have been very, very different. Maybe I wouldn't have been in Albury Wodonga and that would have been terrible. But I can't say I've ever stopped and looked back in a big way.
You spoke at the start about being the country girl from Yakandanda, proud to be part of the region growing up here. Did you always want to be a vet?
I did. When Mum and Dad first moved to Yakandanda, well, they decided when they moved they'd get a farm, and their idea of a farm was 20 acres. And my mum and dad were big animal lovers, so they got a couple of everything. We had horses, goats, pigs, cattle, dogs, cats, chooks, ducks, you name it, we had it. And so I was thrown into this environment of animals and looking after them. And I actually grew up pretty much in a chook yard. I was obsessed by chooks. I love them. And I was a horseback rider. So I was very much an outdoor girl and with the animals all the time. And for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be involved in veterinary science. And my mum was a very, very caring lady and she would call a vet over for almost anything. So I ended up, we had an old vet who used to come out from Talangata, Callum McLeod. He's long retired. And I was like his little apprentice. I would hold instruments for him while he was gelding the horses and pass him things and hold these organs in my hand and want to know how they were working. And I was obsessed with fixing living parts. So it was always natural for me to get involved.
Mm. It sounds, you think, vets, you instantly think, oh, how cute, there's, you play with kittens and, puppies and what have you, and you see animals. But there must be a really difficult part, I'd imagine, of your job. When things don't go to plan, you can't help someone, the sorrow that someone's, lifelong pet perhaps has had to pass away or been seriously ill. How do you go in those situations? It
can be really tough. I grew up as a toughie and I would cry hardly ever as a kid. I was very, very much a tomboy and very, serious person and very committed to everything that I did. And I tried not to let any emotion get in the way. And as I got older and, obviously very obsessed with what I did, it softened me rather than harden me up. But I was hard at the start. I was able to deal with all of that emotion. And as I've got older, I've got a bit softer. And at the same time, when we deal with a crisis situation or an animal in need and grieving people, I'm so happy I can be there to make a big difference. Even if the outcome is not good, I can make the animal more comfortable. I can reassure people. And that's a really powerful part of what we do. And that's what I love to do. So sometimes things get me. I'll have a good cry once or twice a month about some case that's emotionally really kind of got to my heart. But yeah, it's a tough one, Kev. It's not for the faint-hearted. You wouldn't get involved in the veterinary industry just because you love, soft, fluffy things. It's a tough business to be in so far as you're pulling on the heartstrings.
How does it compare being a practicing vet in somebody else's surgery versus having your own?
Oh, it's very different. There's a much bigger job description because you're not only a practicing vet, but you're a bit of a politician with the staff, trying to make sure all the bills are paid on time, trying to make sure that pet owners are as happy as what they can be and they receive all the service that they need. So, yeah, it's much busier. Although when I first started practicing in Albury-Wodonga, I would work some extreme hours, and the after-hours component of the profession was very, very busy back then. Look, I love I love having my own business and being my own boss, but it is busy. That's what I like to do, Kev. Like to be busy.
Overachieving.
Yeah.
And what's a tough decision that you've had to make? Any stand out in your mind where you go, oh, geez, that took a bit of a process to get through?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm a bit of a tough nut, so I tend to make the decision and move on, and I fortunately haven't had to face making a really tough decision like a lot of people have to, with things like, having to turn off life support or anything like that. I think that is a massive decision. Nowhere near that type of decision I've had to make in my life, and hopefully I never have to make that decision. But obviously, as a business owner, you make tough decisions every week, and it's part of what we do. But, I try and not label them as tough.
More essential.
You got me.
You like the positive spin on it?
That's right.
It's an essential decision, not a tough one.
That's right.
What's the best thing that's ever happened to you, Renee?
I have to say my kids, meeting my husband and my kids, that's amazing. But so far as what's happened to me, well, I don't know. I can't say that anything has happened that I haven't tried to push to make happen. But like I mentioned earlier, in business, having that local recognition of our new animal hospital, I think that's really up there because we put our hearts and souls into designing, building, and then running the hospital, coming from somewhere very, very different, a very different premises, and making that transition. And I think, although we had some hiccups, it's been an incredible year. We've been in the premises 12 months now, and I feel that it's one of the best decisions that we've made. I think it's the best decision we've made. Whether it's happened to me, well, it did. It took a lot of work, but I would say professionally that's the best thing.
Sounds like you probably still pinch yourself.
I do. I love being there, and actually probably too much. When I have to go there in the middle of the night, I look for things to do once I've finished I could tidy that or I could do that. It's like having a beautiful car sitting out the back that you see a smudge mark on. You just want to give it a little polish. You know what I mean?
Finessing.
Yes. Yes.
You've mentioned a couple of times, you're hard. People might think that you're always looking too serious. Is there any advice you'd give yourself as a younger you?
Totally. Just relax. I would say to my child self, think about every day and love the people around you. Just that little bit more. Listen more. Take some more advice rather than just going like a bull at a gate. Yeah, just cherish every minute. I would say to my child self too, please concentrate and listen at school, because 3/4 of the year was a complete waste of time because the head was out the window thinking about something else. I was a very disengaged student. And actually, I decided to check myself out of my school in year 11 and go to another high school because I just couldn't concentrate with my peer group, and I had to achieve what I set out to achieve as a little girl. So I said, Dad, I'm going to go to a different school. He says, well, I'm not bloody paying for a private one, so you pick one that's not going to cost anything. So I did. And worked really hard, tried not to make any friends there so I could focus on what I was doing, because I had to make up a lot of time that I spent not studying to put in a big year in year 12 and then to get into university. So I would have said to my younger self, please just take a little bit more notice growing up of advice and teachers. Yeah.
Teaching staff would be loving to hear that
yes.
at the moment, wouldn't they?
Sorry, guys.
Those wrapping up year 11 going into year 12 next year. Change schools, I think, was the message out of that one. Oldie but a goodie question. If you're able to invite 3 people to a dinner party at your house, alive or dead, famous, you know them or not, who would you like to have there?
As much of a toughie as I am, Kev, I'm very sentimental and very family orientated. And Murray and I went through a very, very rough patch 10 years ago when my mum passed away, quite young. And she was the star of the family. And the other star of the family was Murray's dad. And we lost him 18 months later after her, both very quickly. And that really devastated our family. And there's a lot of things that both Murray and I didn't say to those special people. And yeah, I'd love to sit down with all 3 of them. And sorry, I'm getting a bit...
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Mm.
What about the superficial side of you? Is there any pop star or rock star that you'd like to have sitting there perhaps as well to share the experience with?
I think I'd love to have a yarn with Sir Elton John. I think that'd be really interesting. He's... I've always listened to his music. I think he's an incredibly intelligent man. And he has that flair. He can multitask. He plays that piano like nothing else and sings. And there's no way I could be that coordinated. I would just love to have a chat with him because I'm very non-musical also. And so to tap into someone else's mind that has an extremely different mind from my own, I would just, yeah, I would really enjoy that. So he's one of those people that I have up here. Him and Stevie Nicks, I think she's wonderful because at 71 her voice sounds heaps better than it ever did. So I think I'd love to have a yarn to those 2 greats.
Elton John's in the country soon.
Oh, I know.
Maybe that's your next goal. Maybe
hope he's listening.
Sweet or savoury?
Oh, sweet all the way, Kev.
Mm-hmm.
I thrive on chocolate, donuts. Unfortunately, we get too many of them delivered to work, so we're always munching on something as we walk up the corridor.
The thank yous.
Always been a sweet girl.
Oh, gee, this is a good one. Who would you come back as?
Do you know what?
I've never even given this question thought myself.
It's a crazy question.
Who would you come back as?
I don't think I'd come back as anyone to start with if I had a choice. I'd just be too damn tired by the end of it, I think, Kev.
Okay.
I'm just putting as much as I can in every day while I'm still here. And I'm not sure I would come back as anyone different. I think I'd come back as a softer me, but I've had such a wonderful life. I've loved every minute of it so much. Apart from your obvious heartaches during the journey, but the heartaches make all the great times all that much better because you learn the art of appreciation. Appreciate the good times and don't let the bad times bring you down. Is that they just help to sweeten those great things all that much more. So I think I'd come back as me, but I wouldn't want to be as tired. I think as we get older, we struggle a little bit in the energy department. But yeah, I appreciate this life. Yeah.
I think while you were answering that, I managed to, I was paying attention to every word you said, but I just suddenly realised the word in my mind that came out was dolphin. I'd come back as a dolphin. Just riding the bow of boats and jumping and flipping around.
I'd be worried about all those nets, though. I have to create a negative spin on that.
It's always a vet. Plans for the weekend?
Oh, my goodness. I'm really pumped about the weekend. Murray and I are both treating our staff to a weekend out at Lake Hume Resort. We're going out to the boat shed for dinner and cocktails and we're all going to stay out there. So it's a workplace event, but it's with the people I love, my workmates and my family. So best of both mixed by Lake Hume. Doesn't get any better than that.
Location you love.
Yeah, location.
Well, Renee Pigdon, it's been a pleasure to have you sit here in the studio for the journey, and I hope you've had fun.
Thanks, Kev. I actually have. You've kind of brought a lot of stuff out here.
We do that accidentally, I think, each month. You'll feel better for it, I promise. Thank you so much for being part of the journey.
Thanks for having me along, Kev.